And welcome back, everyone. This is the second part to my "What is Strategy" mini lecture. If this is the first video you've seen, go back to the announcements and find the link for the first video. That discusses strategy more, the concept and definition of strategy. In this mini lecture, I want to kind of provide some examples of when I found that of how strategy and goals can be confused. Before I jump into this, I want to just tell you a little story, because professors love stories, right? So back in my earlier in my career, I was on the revenue side of the house, and I worked for a company that I didn't, I was pretty low on the org chart. So the only thing I really knew is I was supposed to sell stuff so the company could make money, and every quarter I had to sell more stuff. And the other thing I knew is that this company was cheap, right? So every piece of equipment we had was generations old. The fax machines were 2 or 3 generations old. We didn't have email yet. I had to use my own AOL account to communicate via email. This company operated on the cheap, and it was a profitable company, which was confusing. I had my cubicle broke once, and I thought, man, I'm going to get. We're going to call some professionals in, and they're coming and going to reorder the pieces on my cubicle that broke, and I'm going to be ready to go, ready to rock and roll. And my boss, who'd been there for 30 years, had said, no, we'll just get, Bob from them shipping to come up and fix it. And he calls Bob, and Bob comes up with a bunch of 2x4s and duct tape, and he crawled under my cubicle, and he was cutting 2x4s and screwing in 2x4s into the frame and using duct tape for who knows what. And he fixed my desk. Right? So my desk was perfectly functional, but in the back of my head, I'm like, I've got to get out of here. Why? This place is it's too cheap for me, right? I didn't understand what the company's goals were, right? I'd never asked, as happens in organizations, the senior leaders rarely really explain what the company's goals are to those kind of in the middle and the lower the chain organization. For whatever reason, other than a mission statement, which is usually pretty vague, no one really understands what's going on at the company, why the company operates the way it does. But I had just a passing with the president of the company at the water cooler. Literally, as a water cooler, and I don't know how the subject came up, but he had said, he discussed what his goal was for the company, and he said, Bill, my goal for the company is that everyone makes a decent wage without feeling like they're working in a pressure cooker, and that their shareholders, it was publicly traded, get a good return on their investment through the dividend policy. Right. So, and that second part was key because I knew every quarter we increased the dividend rate to payout rate to shareholders. It wasn't much, but it was a couple percentage every quarter. And if you spread that over a couple years, the dividend rate return was actually pretty good. And when he said that, a bunch of things just started clicking. Right. I understood why they used 2x4s to repair my desk. I understood why we really took a hard look at investments for product development when our competitors were just investing like crazy. I would go into a job and a project and I would only have 5 of the 10 products I needed to win the job, and my competition had all 10. So it was kind of frustrating when I was looking at, from my vantage point as to why we just seemed to always be starved for investment capital. But when he said that, everything clicked, and I said, now I get it. I don't have to agree with it. I don't think it's right. I don't have to stay there forever, but now I understand why. I understand what the goal is, right? The goal wasn't to be profitable, right? That's how management explained things to rank and files. Well, they said, we need to be profitable, and everyone just said, well, okay, what does that mean? So it wasn't until I had that off chance with the CEO that said everyone earns a good living without feeling like they're in a sweatshop, and we make good returns via the dividend policy to shareholders. Our share price was always flat, right? It did this a little bit, but by and large, you looked at the share price and maybe it matched inflation, but there are certain groups of investors that were just interested in the dividend. So that kind of highlights an example of really understanding what the goal is. He had a really specific goal, and everything followed that goal. Just the challenge, and this may be a lesson to use, you move up the chain, is, don't forget those are in the middle of the org chart and those are in the lower of the org chart, because they may not understand what your goal is, right? His strategy to meet the goal was basically be cheap, right? He really watched the investment dollars. Back to this 2x4 story to fix my desk. So in my view, at the time, I thought the goal was to be profitable, when truly profitability was the strategy. The goal was those 2 points I made for you. So let's kind of try to look at something a little closer to home for all of us here, right? Something a little, let's kind of take it out of the corporate context and maybe put it in some context that I can relate to, and maybe some of you can, maybe you can't. I'm just trying to do my best here. So let's look at 2 goals, right? And these are 2 goals that I've had in my life, right? Get my MBA, like everyone here. And then there was a point in my life when like everyone else, I owned Ben and Jerry's, and we were pretty good friends. So there was a point in my life I said, man, I need to lose some weight. Right? And if you had asked me then, and if you asked me before I started teaching strategy, I would have said get the MBA or lose weight was the goal. But upon reflection, those weren't really the goals. Those were strategies to get to something. So let's go back to this question I said you have to really be able to answer in the first video. I said, you have to explain what is the why to the goal. Right? So if I said, when I was getting my MBA, and someone said, well, what's your goal? And I said, well, get my MBA. And they said, what is the why? I would have had to developed other answers. I would have said, well, promotability or leadership skills, and then there'd be another set of why. Yeah, but why do you want to be promoted? Right? What is driving that? Why do you want to develop leadership skills? Right? This is something I hear in SNU class cohorts a lot, is they want to develop the leadership skills. And these are kind of second order questions. If you work in QA and quality assurance, they'll tell you, if you ever meet a QA person, they'll tell you usually it takes 3 to 5 of these probing questions to get to the heart of why something exists. So if you're ever in a meeting with QA, they say, yeah, but why is that? Yes, but why is that? So in my case, right, this mobility and this leadership thing, as well as the Get MBA thing, was really tied to this of a goal I had, which was not necessarily to be the president of a company, but what I didn't want to happen is if I was shooting for that goal to be a president of a company, say, I didn't want to lose out on the opportunity because I didn't have an understanding of finance or accounting or something, right? So getting the MBA was a strategy to ensure my path to the top wasn't blocked because I didn't know something. And you can see why it's important, because if I just said, well, my goal is to get my MBA, and I get my MBA and I stopped, I wouldn't have known what else I was missing on my way to the top, right? If I wanted to get to the top. So you have to really understand what the goal is and have it well defined. Similarly with weight loss, right? So there's many reasons why people might want to lose some weight. Doctor said so. Right, you're out playing with the kids and man, you're just winded, worried about health, tired of buying new clothes. That was mine, right? I just got tired of every year going back to the store and buying new clothes. So the goal really wasn't to lose weight. It had more to do with the fact that I was tired of buying new clothes, which is kind of tied to the fact that I like money in the bank. But if I wasn't really being precise about the goal, I would have thought, well, this is the goal. And that really wasn't. I was just tired of spending money on clothes. So losing weight was really just a strategy, right? So is your, not just in your personal lives, but in your professional lives, and even in this class, as you go through the coursework, take time to really drill into what is the why. Because my dollars to donuts, you're probably going to have to ask this question 3 or 4 times to get to the true goal. Again, let's go back to this profitability issue goal I discussed early in the video. That you'd have to ask that president, and I didn't think to do it at the time. Well, why do you care about whether your people work in a sweatshop, right? Why do you care if they're unstressed? And why do you care about the dividend policy? My guess is if I had asked that, he would have gone to he would have had another goal in mind. It may have been driven by something personal. Maybe he just said, maybe he may have said, as a leader, I don't think there's any reason people around me should be stressed. I don't find stress to be useful in life. I'm not going to create an environment where people are stressed just in the pursuit of profits, right? But obviously I have shareholders to take care of. So in order to meet those 2 goals, right, I've got to operate the company a certain way. And by the way, Bill, that means we may use just 2x4s to fix your desk instead of buying spare parts. So do be careful in that you really understand what a goal is and what the strategy is. As this course rolls forward, we're going to be thinking it's some really big picture stuff. We're really going to throw you off the deep end of the pool, really, here in a couple weeks. You're going to pick a company, then you have to decide a new strategy that the company isn't currently implementing. But there's going to have to be a goal for it, right? You're going to have to explain why, right? It can't just be, well, I want to build a new plant in Brazil, right? That's right. You may be thinking that's your goal, but that's really just a strategy towards something. If you have any questions at the end of this, week after you read these videos or listen to these videos, reach out early. Let me know. My time is pretty flexible. If not, upwards and onwards. And thanks for listening.